right, so sitting here with Dr. LaNail Plummer-Marcano, somebody I went to school with. So we've been around the same circles for years since high school. So it's interesting to see each other come full circle.
Yes.
And the funny thing about it was a few years ago when I was working on my master's, you hit me up. You was like, "Yeah, did you get your master's from this school?" Like my mom, your mom was like at the same school at the same time. It was
Uh-huh.
crazy. So
Yeah.
it's been interesting coming around there. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you got into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the CEO and clinical director of Onyx Therapy Group. We are a therapy mental health group based out of Washington, D.C., although we have 8 offices that are in Washington, D.C., the state of Maryland, and the state of Pennsylvania. And we are everly growing. So if you want us to come out to where you guys are, I come out there too. But we provide mental health services, direct services to individuals, to couples, to families, and we also provide groups. And we start as young as 3 years old, and we work all the way through the geriatric population. So we do a lot of direct mental health services. The other element that we do that we've been pretty good at and effective with is professional development for organizations and schools in terms of how to incorporate mental health into work with students, or how to incorporate mental health with their staff and their employees, right? Because mental health affects everybody in all environments, not just one or the other. So we provide a lot of professional development and training around those elements as well. And we've been doing this work for about 7 years now through Onyx, But I've been a mental health counselor for about 15 years now. And I got into the work, interestingly enough, I got into the work. I was just saying this to a young person the other day who's trying to figure out what to do with college. And I decided that I wanted to go to Howard and study law. But while I was in my work study program, I wanted to study law and psychology. But while I was in my work study program, I was working at a school, and I had a young client that I was working with at the time. And he was really talking a lot about how counseling had helped him achieve his goals. And his primary goal was to be able to write his name, and how counseling had been really good to help him learn how to settle down and how to get focused and how to manage his emotions. He was 7 at the time. Now that I think about it, he's probably well into his 20s now. But he had learned how to spell his name by the end of the time, and so I really felt satisfied with counseling, and I ended up getting my master's degree in it, and had a wonderful career starting mental health practices in schools and doing a lot of professional development and trainings around Washington D.C. and along the Eastern Seaboard. And then I just kind of got into the therapy group, the private practice, and it's grown significantly over the years. So we have 15 counselors with us and a staff of 19. So we're growing rapidly, and it's because my passion is just to be able to provide mental health services to our different communities. And so wherever the community is, wherever folks are in need, and that's where I'm trying to be. And because of that mission and focus on the true work around mental health, we've been doing pretty good. I'm also faculty at Johns Hopkins University, so I am a assistant professor there on the clinical track of the counseling department, and so I get to do some research around counseling and techniques and mental health, and how to incorporate identity and culture through the mental health lens, and do some identity development, because sometimes that becomes the basis of our mental health issues. Like, we don't know ourselves well enough, and so when we're faced with different obstacles, we don't necessarily know how to navigate them. So doing a lot of work around identity development and things like that. I think that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's it this year for 2019.
Just for this year, right?
Just for this year. I don't know what's gonna happen next year.
Say new year, new goals.
Exactly, always.
So let's get into what you specialize in and like what your approach is, right? Because the main thing when people are seeking like therapy or counseling is more so a lot of times it's kind of reclaiming their space is the first thing, right? It's trying to get a hold of knowing themselves, trying to move forward with either grief or different things of that nature, and just getting through stressful situations. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, we have people that they want to talk to their friends, and they offload on people that they know. But at the same time, those same people, they can have certain conversations, but they really can't provide adequate advice in a lot of the situations that they're going through. So
Yeah.
why what is your approach, and why should they come to you and really start limit some of those conversations that they're having with peers?
Yeah, I think it's great. You know, it's wonderful to have our support system, to have our friends that we talk to. I'm from California, so I use the word homies. So to have the homies that we talk to and things like that, even our family members. But there's a couple things that make that tricky. One, you can't ensure that whomever you're talking to in your friend group is going to keep your business to themselves, right? Like it may be that they say something to another person, and it may be an offhand comment. It may not be on purpose to like really put your business out there, but they say something, and then it kind of snowballs, and next thing you know, this mental health issue that you had is now compounded because everybody in your family knows about it, or all of your friend groups know about it, and that wasn't the intention. The other thing is our friends, even with them being good hearted and having good nature, they don't necessarily have the training around how to even protect themselves. Like sometimes we burn our friends out because we always offloading and upload on them and telling them all of our problems, and they got their own problems, and they don't necessarily know how to create a boundary around that, and so they're thinking about it a lot, and then they eventually start avoiding people. Right? They're like, oh, here goes such and such calling again. I'm not even gonna pick up this phone because they're about to tell me about their problems, and I don't want to do it. And then so the person who's with these problems ends up feeling isolated because their friends and family don't want to talk to them anymore because they're like, it's this perception that they're always complaining. And then the last thing is our friends and family don't necessarily have the techniques. They don't know how, like, how you can help somebody improve their communication skills, how you can help somebody understand their identity. So they don't have all of that stuff. They have good hearts, but they don't necessarily have the training and the techniques to create boundaries and to help with some skill development and mental health processing. So it's always good to come to counseling because we're trained in all of those things. We know how to get progress and how to do it very well and very strategic. We're professionals, just like your physician sees what the issue is and they develop a treatment plan and they make prescriptions and they change your lifestyle in certain ways to help with your physical health. As counselors, we do the exact same thing. We have treatment plans, we have goals, objectives, interventions, diagnoses, and we work towards those things so that people can get what they want. So my approach is a little bit more culturally centered because I'm a Black woman, and I believe that being a Black woman is a huge part of my identity. So I bring it into everything that I do. So I talk a lot about identity. I talk a lot about socialization. I talk a lot about how those things intertwine and they create our perceptions, which subsequently it impacts our mental health. So I am a cognitive therapist, so I focus a lot on thoughts and then subsequently behaviors and feelings. And so my approach is to understand how somebody got their thought, like where did this thought even come from, right? And it's some metacognitive work, like thinking about our thoughts is often hard. But once we get in the habit of doing it, then we're able to check ourselves better when we're in situations with like our partners, our children, or at work, and things like that. So my approach is a lot about thoughts, and it's a lot about culture, and it's a lot about identity. All three of those things and how they connect to create this triangle of mental health, strong positive mental health, or maybe even mental illness.
From the thought perspective, right? A lot of times people have the issue of not being able to turn their mind off and not being able to relax their mind to either sleep or focus on different activities and things like that. Um, and then the other part about that is you were talking about the background and being Black. Like a lot of times you run into people who don't really understand the struggles and issues that you've been through, especially as a Black person. How certain situations cause higher anxiety levels in you than it does in different people as well. You might be getting like for instance, for me, recently, I was helping a coworker pick up something from another neighborhood, but it was one of those richer neighborhoods. And the next time we went back, me knowing the neighborhood, whatever, because the first time we went there, I pulled in with this other guy, and we see security, and I'm like, yeah, in a few minutes they're gonna pull back around, see where we at.
Yep.
Within 5 minutes, they pulled around the corner, and I'm like, all right, whatever. So I had to go back there another few days later to pick up something else. And as I'm nearing the neighborhood, I really wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't fully conscious, since I'm getting by. But as I'm getting there, I'm starting noticing that I feel that anxious feeling.
Yep.
And even till then, this was within the last year, I really didn't know the difference between, the anxiety versus the adrenaline, right? Because I've
Yeah.
been playing sports, so to me, it felt like the same thing all the time. I just started realizing that a lot of times that might have been anxiety when I thought I was feeling adrenaline, right? And
Yeah.
understanding between adrenaline and anxiety and things like that. So that was something else that I think people kind of struggle with going forward. So what do you think about, what is your take on, people trying to shut down their thoughts and dealing with the anxiety and recognizing, kind of like when they need help and things like that.
Yeah, the thought piece is difficult, right? Because the research varies, right? And it says that we have about 100 thoughts, no less than 100 thoughts within an hour, right? And we don't necessarily think about it that way because we think about one thought, and that one thought becomes our action, and that action becomes how we move throughout the rest of the day, right? So you're at work and you have an assignment that you have to work on, a task that you have to work on, and you think that you're only thinking about that. But in reality, you're now thinking about your grocery list, you're thinking about an argument you had with somebody 5 years ago, you're thinking about what you're going to wear tomorrow, you're thinking about whatever the case may be, and you're having like all of these thoughts happening at once. And because we don't channel our thoughts, we end up getting overwhelmed by them. Our own thoughts is what distracts us. People often think like you're distracted because of what's in the environment, but most of the time people are distracted by what's in their own head and not being able to channel it. So there's a lot of different ways that we could close down our thoughts, but specifically closing down thoughts as we go to bed is a combination of what is happening physiologically in our brain and what is happening emotionally with our cognition. So when people are, and I'm glad you brought up the bed piece, Carl, because if people are not getting enough sleep, they're not going to be able to function in any other area of their life, right? Like their physical health is going to be off because their cells don't have enough time to rejuvenate. Their hunger symptoms are even off, right? They end up thinking that they're hungry when they're actually thirsty, but in actuality, they're just tired and their body is like looking for something so that it looks for energy. So it makes you think that you're hungry when it's just really trying to stay awake and it's looking for sources to stay awake. So when we don't sleep, it affects a lot of things. It affects how our brain works. It affects our communication. It affects our relationships. It affects our body. It affects our skin. It affects everything. So people, y'all need to be sleeping, right? People need to sleep. But before you go to sleep, there's certain things that you need to do. Like we actually should not be eating within a 2-hour window before we go to sleep. Because like you talked about a second ago with adrenaline and other chemicals and hormones in our body goes into this process where it's trying to digest the food. So our blood actually is pumping a lot harder right before we go to sleep. So if your body is working harder, even though you're not moving, your body internally is still working harder. It's not going to allow you to go to sleep because it's working, right? And so we can't eat like 2 hours before we go to bed. And you know what's killing us, Carl? Our cell phones. We are on our phones right before we go to bed, but that's affecting our eyes and it's affecting our REM sleep, right? So our eyes are actively working because of the blue lights on our phone, and we may think that we're just on our phone being mindless, right? Like going through social media, but our mind is still registering everything that we see and it's still holding on to it. So although don't have an emotional connection to what we're doing, our brain is still working. And so then when we try to go to sleep, it's not relaxed because it's like still computing what we saw and it's trying to store it into our schemas. So we have, I'm being real technical, but we have like these schemas that store how we think. And so our mind is working into these schemas really quickly so we don't go to sleep. And by the time our brain settles down, it's time to wake up and go to work the next day. So we have to change our eating habits. We have to change our phone habits and our screen times. people, like Black people, when we talk about like meditation, Black people are like, I don't meditate. That's like for people out in like Seattle, right? They're just sitting there holding trees and meditating. But in our communities, we call it praying. Or in our communities, we call it like just sitting down. You know, like people be like, you just need to sit down. You need to have a seat. That's what they're saying. Like just sit down and chill out for a moment. And there's some ways we could do that without necessarily calling it mindful or without calling it meditation or mindfulness. Um, and it could be things as simple as like just connecting your hands with each other, like just rubbing your fingers across each of the fingers, spending time and feeling like the veins and things like that in your hands. So something that doesn't require you to do a whole lot, but the sensation of itself is calming. And so we need to be meditating a little bit more before we go to bed. There's like all of these things that we can do. You could, just as long as you're activating your senses. But in terms of the cultural piece of it all, there's elements of mental health that in our culture that have not always aligned because of the taboos and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and on the meditation piece, I did get into a habit, but this is a morning habit, right? Of when I get up, not touching any electronics when I first get up, right? And it's just me getting into the mood of the day and making that transition. And one of the things, a couple of things I do before then is I might read a little something before I do anything. So I'm still doing the reading piece. I'm not still doing the meditation. So I would read a little bit. I would do some meditation for as long as I can sit still, because I can't sit still that long. So sometimes it'll be 5 minutes, sometimes it'll last 15 minutes, right? But for me, the best way I can do it, because I can't sit Indian style, is more so just laying on my back on the floor with my eyes closed and covered. A lot of times it's me laying on the floor with a hoodie on, my eyes covered, and just laying there and focusing on like the deep breaths and trying to clear my mind and clear my head for the day. And making sure I have that headspace to get tasks done that I want to get done early. Because for me, being the morning time is my most active time. It's the best time for me to get things completed, and it's the time that I think the best at. I can get a lot of things done. When I was in school, writing papers early in the morning, that's the thing for me. After that, it's like the rest of the day, I'm like, I'm done. So and that was that habit I got into. I haven't done it for most of this year as far as the meditation piece. But the reading and not touching anything until after I go through my morning routine every morning, no matter what it is, it's helped me a lot at the same time as well.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned we call peak times, right? Like you saying that you're most productive early in the morning, first thing in the morning. That's when you're like when you can produce a lot of stuff. We call that peak times. Everybody is not most productive in the morning, right? Sometimes the peak time is at the oddest time. Their peak time may be from like 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? We often think like, oh, you're a morning person or an afternoon person, but that's not the case. Your peak time could be, 3:30 to 6:30, right? And that's the time of the day where you're like cranking out stuff, like it's just pumping and it's just going. So one of the things that we do in counseling is under one of our behavioral models. It's called a behavioral theory model, is to assess when people have their peak time. When is the time of the day that you're most productive? Because that's when you actually need to be doing certain things. And so we help people restructure their day around their peak time so that they're getting more out of their day. This is especially important for folks who are coming into counseling because they're like, I'm just not focused, or I'm just not doing well at work, or I just can't get things done. And they're coming in thinking that they're about to talk about the emotions behind it. Like, oh my God, why can't I just get my stuff done? I'm such this, and that, and they label themselves negatively. When in actuality, they just not using their day in the best way because they don't know their peak time. So we assess peak time too. Like counseling isn't just sitting in here talking about like whether you feel like you are depressed or anxious or anything like that. Counseling is helping you to get the best out of your life, right? To have the best experiences out of your life. And everybody isn't going to have a diagnosis of something really severe like a personality disorder. Some of them just need adjustments. They need to just make some adjustments to a few things over a couple months, and then they're good to go.
That makes sense. And it's always got me because, people be like, the traditional 9 to 5, right? They have people that work these hours and they're saying, hey, this is when we and everybody work, but that's not everybody's optimal time. And where I'm
Mm-hmm.
at now, especially with the main job being in software, we have people who are working in different time zones. We have people who actually work better later on the day than at night.
Yeah.
I got one of my homeboys. He doesn't really start work till about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning because
Mm-hmm.
that's when he starts getting going. But he's more
Mm-hmm.
productive in the later part of the afternoon, evening time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he's up, he's checking in code at like 1 in the morning. But it's like
Yeah.
for us, it's as long as you're getting things done that needs to be done, then you're
Yep.
fine. It doesn't matter. But then you have people that are actually catered to, hey, you have to do this at this time, and this time. Sometimes your eat schedule is down at this time, and I mean, for me, I think it's ridiculous.
Yep.
And you were talking about more of the that goes back into the professional development piece, right?
Yeah.
So for one, I didn't know that they also call, I guess, those counseling sessions as professional development. For me, professional development always meant honing whatever skills or tasks that you're doing to either perform that job or another job.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that they incorporate that into professional development.
Mhm.
Do they kind of assess those peak times when they're doing it as well, or do they handle that differently?
Yeah, depending on who's hiring us. So say I'm going in and say I'm doing professional development through an organization, right? Then yes, I go in and I assess all their employees around their peak times, and then I make recommendations to their leadership in terms of how they need to be flexible about their work day so that they're optimizing their clients. But say I have individual clients that are coming in through maybe they're paying through their insurance company or they're paying out of pocket, and I'm doing their intake and I'm assessing where they feel like they have strengths in their lives, like whether it's in their career or relationships, their money, wherever the case may be, and then where they have some deficits, and then we start working on what those deficits are. So in counseling, we're also talking about money management, right? We're talking about finances. When people have goals around home ownership, there's emotional elements to that because maybe we came from a neighborhood where we didn't get to own our own home. We're military brats, so
Right.
maybe our parents got an opportunity to own their home, but maybe they didn't because we were always moving around and things like that, right? And so there's the emotional element of, oh my God, I might be the first person in my family to own a home, or I may be the person in my family who never owns a home, and there's emotions around that. That is separate than let us talk about what your financial goals are to get you to own the home if that's what you want, because we have emotions about money, right? You ever think about it, when payday comes, everybody's happy, right? It's payday, I'm about to go do this, I'm doing that. 3 days later, if there's no money in that account, there are emotions around that too. And so when I say, for instance, when I do work with couples, I have to talk about money, and I have to talk about the emotions that come after the money, right? Because some people will spend money this way, some spend it that way, and that could actually be a reason that people divorce because they
Right.
spend money differently. That's what they say. We're divorcing because we spend money differently. What they're really divorcing over is that they've never communicated around their emotions around money, when they have insecurities around money, or when they are too free with money, all that kind of stuff. So counseling isn't just the emotions behind just life. It's planning, it's life planning, it's having somebody who's going to consistently sit there and help you. They're going to be your accountability partner. They're going to be creative with how they approach you and things like that. So we talk about everything. I have individual clients who come to counseling because they want to leave their job, but they don't necessarily know how to leave their job. They don't know how to go and get a new job. And this isn't career counseling per se, but it's another element of what we do. It's the behavioral element of supporting them. The same thing with I had a guy come in, and he was a young guy. He was probably in like his early 30s, but he had decided that he was ready to get married. He didn't even have a girlfriend, Carl, but he was about to get married. So we had to think about, like, well, what are the things that he needed to do in order to find this person and to get married? And let me tell you, they got married. They got married, and he found his person, and he dated his person, and they got engaged and they got married and now they happy and they better name their baby LaNail. So, but what I'm saying is people, especially in our community, people think that counseling is all it is, like, oh my God, I'm crazy and I can't figure my life out. And it's not even that. It's anything in your life that you want support with, a counselor is going to be able to help you.
Okay. And sticking with the professional development piece, because that affects a lot of people when it comes to so we have like teachers, first responders, even counselors and therapists, right? And us coming from being military brats, we see the burden that is taken on the vets and even those still active duty. Some of those either don't have people to talk to. They're actually taking in the burdens of everybody else and don't have a way to offload that, right? So they're not really having those conversations. So it's having that professional development set up for them to, get into that space where they can, I guess, get mentally free and things like that.
Yeah.
So are you guys like, what is your take on that? Even especially the other thing is, especially with social media now, right? With everything is on the internet now, you can get at anybody. Oh, this athlete did score this touchdown. Let me go hit him up and tell him I'm gonna kill his whole family and things like that, right? So that people get depressed and things like that. And even with the music industry, all entertainment, and it's taking a toll on everybody a lot more than it has in the past.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like there's been a path forward set for them to either get the help or even remove that stigma around, hey, you should seek help. You're not crazy if you're thinking about getting help, and just opening that door, opening that window for people to start, just seeking that therapy that they need.
Yeah. So that made me think about a couple things, right? One of the things at Onyx is that I have an expectation for my counselors to also participate in their own counseling, right? And that may sound weird to people. They're like, but you're a counselor, you can figure it out yourself. But that's not what counseling is, right? Counseling is to have somebody else to help you navigate life and navigate the world. Sure, I have all the techniques in the world to be able to help even myself, but that's not the point. The point is to be able to go someplace or to talk to somebody and just kind of unload that stuff. And that person doesn't judge you. They're not holding it against you. They're not doing anything except listening. And their whole goal is to just help you make your life as good as you want it to be. So, and I say that because even on our own social media page, I am always highlighting the fact that counselors need to be in counseling and clients need to ask their counselors, do you go to counseling? Because if the counselor themselves don't go to counseling, you might not want to trust that counselor because they just hold that stuff in. Yeah. Anyway, what's happening, Carl, is that people, we don't have boundaries like we used to, right? Like back in the day, we had physical boundaries and social boundaries. So by that, I mean, when you went home from school, say you were in school and you got bullied, right? When you went home, those bullies didn't go home with you. Right, home could potentially be your safe space. But nowadays, these kids have their phones and their bully is on their phone, right? Their bully is on their social media or their bully is calling them. Even when we were kids, we had a house line that everybody had to use, right? One phone that everybody had to use. And so maybe people couldn't get in contact with you, even if they were like trying to tease you or bully you by phone. They couldn't get in contact with you because you have other people in your house that are using that same phone. But because everybody has their own individual phones now, there's no boundary. The phones are with us all the time. They're with us when we wake up. They're with us when we go to sleep. People are taking their phones to the bathroom. The phones are with them all the time. So there's no boundary. And that's why we're able to access people a lot faster. So the truth is counseling hasn't caught up with how fast technology is moving yet. We do counseling by phone, like it's a credential, it's a telemental credential. We do it by video and we do all that kind of stuff. But people don't have balance and boundaries yet. Everything follows them everywhere, including at work. When we were talking about professional development a second ago, bosses are emailing people at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and expecting a response at 6 o'clock in the morning. That makes people anxious because they can't even sleep because they know as soon as they wake up, they're going to have 10 messages from their boss who's going to be asking them to do something. And then in terms of like these industries not providing mental health counseling. I think some of them are trying to get a little better. I don't think they're doing the best, but they're getting better. Like police officers, firefighters, the military is still a little slow. Like they're getting there, but
They're slow with everything.
they're slow with everything. And they're really afraid to make their folks vulnerable. They don't want their soldiers and airmen and stuff to get vulnerable because they're afraid that that's going to weaken them for wartime, when it's actually the very opposite. But Carl, the group that I am actually really concerned about, because I don't think they're getting enough attention when it comes to the trauma that they experience, are teachers. Teachers are exposed. If a teacher has 30 children in their classroom and just 5 of those children have trauma, that teacher has to deal with 5 traumas every single day. Because when a child has been traumatized, everything they do after that trauma is trying to regain safety again. They're trying to get equilibrium back in their life, in their emotional life. And so they're acting out in the classroom. Or they may be very attached. They're doing all sorts of interesting and weird things. Not weird. It looks weird to the layman, but it's not weird to us as counselors. Like, we know exactly what's happening. But they're doing all of these things, and the teacher has to deal with that. And they have to teach. And if they don't teach right, then the scores are low, and then they can lose their job. But nobody is helping them with the fact that they're experiencing vicarious trauma every single day. Or when teachers have to make CPS calls, or in different states they call them different things, but calls to Child and Family Services, or that's traumatic for teachers, and they're not getting the support that they need. The schools are not taking care of the teachers, and our teachers are getting burned out, and subsequently our students are getting burned out, and they don't have good quality teachers, and so we're not learning the way we should. And of course, for me as a counselor, everything comes back to mental health. So when we have low academic scores, it's because we have mental health issues that are going on and people aren't addressing it properly, right? So I think that some places are trying their best to do what they can, but there's many groups that are still being lost in the process, like teachers.
Yeah, I believe that as well. And it's good that you have your people making sure that they also get counseling as you're doing different things. Because like I was telling you before, like I had one of my guys who was a counselor. He committed suicide, which he
Yeah.
wasn't getting the help that he needed. Another guy that I played ball with, he OD'd, and I believe it was more so due to depression. You know what I'm saying? Things like that.
Yeah.
Even he, what nobody knows about me is, at one point, like, so I don't know, you might know, like I got into a lot of car accidents, right?
Okay.
So one of them was the one that finished me done playing football, and I got a few more after that, and then I had an issue with my neck, and then I had somebody that was driving crazy as I was driving in an older car, and he drove around, almost hit me, and in my mind, I was so fed up with people running into me that I was like, man. So I tried to tail whip him real quick, right? Then I was like, yo. Then luckily I missed. At the same time, I was like, man, like I'm bugging out, because at the same time, it's more so um. I'm quiet. So people always come to me and talk, you know what I'm saying, talk about certain things they're going through and things like that. We have those conversations and I go about. But what I realized at that point was the way that I always offloaded that it never bothered me, was always like working out and through sports. Like I got everything out through me through that I never even felt that. So at that point, when I couldn't do anything, I was feeling all that weight that from myself and everybody else that put on me, that I was like, man. So at one point, I was like, let me see if we can talk to somebody. So I went to go talk to one guy. It was this middle-aged white dude, whatever. One going up in there, and his whole assessment was, so basically you're just frustrated because you feel helpless and you can't work out, blah, blah, blah. But he wouldn't fully understand what I was saying. Then I was like, you know what? This is a waste of time. And I never even had that conversation again. And you know what I'm saying? But then I ended up, getting back my mind back right mentally and things like that. But it's kind of like dealing with people that you can't relate to, or can't relate to you, and then you kind of like, whatever, and you just go about your day, because like the thing is, like, how do we understand when you need help, when you're going through depression, anxiety, things like that. Like I was saying, for me, until probably within the last year, what I thought might have been adrenaline might have been anxiety this whole time. And I didn't know, because to me it always felt the same way. It felt the same way it did when I was playing sports and getting ready for things like that, competition and things like that. So it feels like that same feeling to me. So it's like, you know, how do people know when they need to take that step and have those conversations with somebody else?
Yeah, I think what you said, that was, there's a couple things you said that was super interesting, right? One is um your experience with that counselor, that middle-aged white guy, and the relatability piece. That, Carl, is exactly why my business is what it is, right? Because we need to have more people who we can relate to in more places, just more access in general. And the great thing about what we are doing with technology is that we can now see clients that are not even coming to our office. They could be somewhere else, and I can still provide therapy for them, right? Because of a particular credential that I have and a particular software that I use. But that just means that more people have access to us, and so they don't have to go see a middle-aged white man anymore. They can find a younger black man, or a younger black woman, or a younger anybody, or a black anybody, right? Like, just so that they can relate to them. But it's important to have that. And our research tells us that we connect more to counselors who we think can relate to us. And the reason for that is we don't always want to have to explain every single thing. We want our counselors to understand stuff that we can't even say, which means the counselor has to be skilled enough in listening to what is being said, and also feeling and using their intuition of what is not being said.
Right.
We have to hear and process all at the same time. We have to pay attention to what's not being said and potentially why it's not being said. But when you can relate to somebody, those conversations happen a lot easier. They happen with finesse, right? Because you're just like, you don't even, when you were telling me about the security guard, you didn't even have to say anything else. I knew exactly where you were about to go, right? Because I could relate on that element, right? On that level. And so we need more counselors that are relatable to us. So I got so excited about that. There was something else. What was the last question you just asked me?
Just more so understanding, you know, when we should start having those conversations and seeking help, and understanding the difference between understanding when we're going through anxiety or depression and things of that nature, and distinguishing between the anxiety and adrenaline, things like that.
It's different for everybody, right? Because we're all our levels of tolerance, of self-tolerance, that's really what it is, are different. So some people can tolerate a lot. They can tolerate a lot of thoughts. They can tolerate a lot of feelings. And some people can't. And the tolerance doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. Some people can tolerate a whole lot because they've experienced trauma or abuse for a long period of time. So they just have a higher tolerance. But whenever somebody just feels off, when they just feel like this is too hard, and it could be a statement as simple as that, like, this is too much. Okay, that's the time that you need to go to counseling then, right? And it could be, this is too much at work, or this is too much at home, or this is too much that I keep looking at my bank account and I got $5 in it and that's all I have, right? Like, it could be, this is too much of anything. And what you're basically saying to yourself is, this is too much for me to deal with by myself. And so then that means it's time to get a counselor. That means it's time to get an accountability partner to help you figure out certain things in your life, to help you figure out when some of those moments are purely adrenaline and when some of those moments are actually anxiety. And our bodies are tricky in those kind of ways because our bodies operate in survival, right? That this is real technical, but real quick, our brains are divided into different sections, and the back part of our brain is our limbic system, and that's where we experience all of our senses and our emotions and things like that. And then our chemicals are being released from the more center part of our brain. Adrenaline can mask a lot of emotional issues, but so can things like serotonin, which is another chemical that our body naturally releases, our oxytocin, and things like that. So our dopamine. And I'll give you an example for dopamine. So if you're doing something that you really like doing, say a person really likes crocheting, right? Their brain will release dopamine during that time the word dope, like drugs, comes from this word dopamine. And so their brain will release dopamine and they will experience a high. And so in that moment, they think that their world is perfectly fine. But the moment they put the crochet yarn and needles down, then they're depressed again, right? And so that's because their brain has created this high for them and mask the depression. And so what therapy does is it helps to increase the dopamine without necessarily using the crochet, but it also deals with the depression. So our brains, because because our body is trying to survive, our brains will trick us often to make us think one thing is happening when something else is actually happening, because it just wants us to survive. And there gets a point where we're tired. People are always like, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore. That's when you need to go to counseling. And it doesn't make you weak to be able to want somebody to like help you out. Like, we ask for help in other ways, right? Like, you go to a barber, that barber has to help you. Isn't he helping you? Like, you don't have to be going to the barber to help you. I don't have any problem going to my ophthalmologist and getting some cute frames, but we still have a problem asking somebody to help us figure out other elements of our life. And that's not fair to ourselves.
And sometimes, though, the other thought process for some people is, somebody has it. These people had it worse than me, or somebody has it worse than me. So is my problem enough for me to actually hit that level? But it's more so come down to, and from what you're saying, is what you can really handle. And when you're saying, hey, this is enough for me, and I can't do this by myself, so I need to have that conversation with somebody else just to figure out how I can get past this.
Exactly. And that's another thing that we have in our society, because we're social people. Like, so much of our world is related to another person, that we're constantly comparing ourselves. And that, Carl, is really what's messing us up. And that's why we're having such a high increase of young people coming in with mental health issues, because they have so much access to comparison. When we were in high school, you and I, we could only compare ourselves to the people who were in the high school with us. And maybe if we went to the PX and got some magazines, then we compared somebody to the magazine. But kids nowadays, they have access to everything. They have access to fashion bloggers in China. And now they compare themselves to the fashion bloggers in China. And it just increases the number of people you could compare yourself to. And that increases the opportunities to experience a dysfunction, to experience a disorder. Like, we just, going back to the boundaries conversation, we have no boundaries anymore. We don't have like boundaries on our social media and in our comparison of ourselves, and even in our relationships. Like, we just let people talk to us in any kind of way, and we internalize that, and we're like, yeah, this is my boss and this is how they're supposed to talk to me. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. And you can go to counseling and develop some skills so that you could be assertive, or you could get some resources and some books to read. Like, I love prescribing the book 48 Laws of Power to my clients. Like, you need to think about ways that you could be strategic in different environments, but your counselor is your resource, right? Like, your counselor is the person that helps you figure that out. You don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad you went to that comparison piece too, because everybody does it, and you got people that stunting on social media these days, where they're like, "Oh yeah, I did this trip, and this trip." Sometimes that stuff is photoshopped, and everybody's like, "Oh, they did that," and they go broke trying to do the same thing, and then you got the person that finally came out and was like, "Oh man, I was found out." Now they depressed and they was stunting. I'm like, "Come on, man, like, you doing way too much."
Yeah,
we gotta get away from that though. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I'm trying to think. Yeah, that was pretty the gist of where I wanted to go with that.
I think one more thing while you're thinking about I know we're gonna end up, close up in just a minute, but one of the things I really want to touch bases on real quick is relationships and how we're relating to each other. Our divorce rates are steadily increasing. Our divorce rates are increasing, and our rates of delayed relationships and marriages are also increasing. So there's more people that are living single lives, which is perfectly fine if that's what somebody wants to do. But even in living single lives, I think it's important that people continue to develop skills that help them relate to other people, right? I was talking with one of my counselors, I was doing a supervision session with them a few minutes ago, and we were talking about one of the clients who's struggling with social skills. And when you ask her about social skills, she's like, I'm fine. I have friends, yada, yada, yada. Socially, I know how to get a friend and I know how to maintain a friend. But what this person also does is that they interrupt in conversations all the time, right? And that is a social skill. And so what's happening now is that people are getting frustrated with them and they don't talk to them. So the client is coming in and they're like, I actually haven't been talking to my friends much, and it's because they don't like me and they doing all this. And the person is like making up all of these reasons, and it could be accurate. But when we got down to it, it's really because they keep interrupting people, and nobody wants to talk to somebody who's constantly interrupting them, right? That is a true social skill. That's the kind of stuff that could slowly wear down a relationship. People are like, oh, such and such got a divorce because somebody cheated. No, that's not what happened. There's a whole lot that happened before the cheating happened. Unless that person had a sex addiction, there was a whole lot more that happened before that, right? Or they say we got a divorce, or me and such broke up because they don't, I don't like how they use their money. There's a whole lot that happens before that are very specific skills that we don't pay attention to, and they wear people down. One last example, I have a client, they are a multicultural client. But when you look at them, you wouldn't know that because they both look Black, right? But one is Black Caribbean and one is Black American. Two totally different cultures. They just look alike, right? They all got the same brown skin and the hair, right? But because of those cultural differences, when they came to counseling, they came for premarital counseling, which is excellent. Our research tells us that couples that experience premarital counseling has a 50 to 60% higher chance of staying married because they're dealing with the issues before they even go into marriage, or they end up not getting married at all because they realize they got too many issues, right? Anyway, so they come in for premarital counseling, and maybe in our third session, I was like, yeah, so how are we going to address these cultural differences that you guys have? Blew their mind, right? Well, we don't have cultural differences. We Black, right? Like, we're the same. That cultural piece has been so important in the maintenance of their marriage. They're married now, but it's been so important in the maintenance of their marriage because at one point in their relationship, they were dating and they just thought that they just weren't getting along. Such and such don't understand me and I'm trying to communicate. Why is such and such doing it this way? And not realizing that they've been socialized with two different cultures. And that has been the issue in the relationship. And that needs to be addressed on a regular basis. If a Black man marries an Asian woman, we automatically think about cultural differences. But when a Black man marries a woman from Jamaica, we don't think about it the same way, So all of that, I went on a tangent. Maybe I need to have some tea so I can focus, right? But all of that to say, I really want more people to come into counseling with their partners, with the person that they're dating, even if they're just girlfriend and boyfriend, right? Like, you don't even have to be like, I'm about to marry this person next week. No, like, if you really value the relationship, go into counseling and see where y'all can develop some skills together, see where you could process certain things, see how you could like create more trust in your relationships and stuff like that. See, Carl, I told you I talk a lot. I get so excited about this stuff, man. You asking me a simple question and I just be talking.
Hey, you giving good information though, and it's funny, and I'm glad you brought up the whole just the social skill aspect, right? Because I'm quiet. I don't talk a lot. So when I talk, I don't like when people like start interrupting me and talking over because I'm just gonna be quiet and just sit there and be like, all right, well, I ain't talking no more anyway. Be like, he quiet. Yeah, I'm extra quiet now, like because I don't like repeating myself, and that's the other thing. Like I hate repeating myself. So when it comes down to that, it's annoying. And then I'm introverted. A lot of people don't really realize that because I socialize outside of it. I get drained from that stuff. So just going out and it's like times when I'm like burning the candle at both ends for weeks, and I'm like, all right, it's the weekend. I'm just relaxing. I'm leaving the house, but at the same time, there's days where I'm like, yeah, I need to get out because I know that I'm distancing myself from people a lot. And I need to make sure, at least let me go out there and just socialize before I actually become a hermit or just be awkward out there, right? So it's things that, like, if you're aware of yourself and how you are, then it actually helps with those situations because like, yeah, I'm about to just revert and have my head down and doing other things like for the past year, like I've done that where I've had my head down, get some other stuff going on for a while. It's where I'm like, yeah, I need to sit back, relax, and not get so burnt out. So like last month, I ended up going to Cali before Thanksgiving just so I can kind of just relax and get away from everything that I was doing before. And all that stuff helps out a lot though.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you just brought up that you're an introvert and you're quiet, and you know that when people interrupt you, you don't like it, and it'll shut you down, right? But think about all the people, Carl, who don't know that about themselves. They do it. They're like, you know what? I don't like this person anymore. And they can't even explain why they don't like that person. And it's because the person keeps interrupting them. Or they end up dating, imagine an introvert, maybe way more extreme than you, trying to date an extrovert. And that extrovert is just like me, just talking. All of a sudden, the relationship over because the introvert's like, Slim, you talking too much. Like, and the extrovert feels their feelings are hurt and stuff like that. I'm saying all of that to say counseling helps with all of that. It helps people understand who they are. Remember in the beginning where I talked about identity and how identity is so important in terms of how we deal with our mental health in both positive ways and negative ways. And say if you didn't recognize that you were an introvert and you kept trying to force yourself to go out in these social environments, right? Even when you were burnt out and it's not working. You don't know what's going on. You're not sure. You feel awkward around people, whatever the case may be. And it's because you don't know yourself well enough. Well, counselors are going to help you figure out who you are. We are trained how to ask certain questions. We know how to ask questions to shut somebody down, like a closed-ended question, a yes or no question. We know how to get somebody to talk by asking open-ended questions, like how questions and what questions and tell me more statements, right? Like we know how to do all of that. And sometimes we need counselors to help us just understand who the heck we are. Like, it is okay. People think that it's me. I'm supposed to know everything about me. It doesn't always work that way. We don't always know everything about ourselves. Sometimes we need somebody to help us understand who we are. And that does not mean that we have a major mental health issue. It means we just need an accountability partner. Somebody who's going to keep our secrets, who's not going to judge us, and who's going to be available to us when we need it.
Yeah, and I think since I've lived by myself majority of the time, it's been easier for me, I guess, to understand my reaction to certain things, understand how I am. And then I get people mess with me now because I'll go to like somebody, like a party at somebody's house or whatever. And anytime you go to a party or like a big gathering, before you leave, you say bye and but then everybody wants to come on the conversation. Like for me, when I decide I want to go, I actually decided 15 to 20 minutes before then. So for you to stop me and start having another conversation, I'm just like, yo, like I've been ready to go. Like I don't want to talk to you right now. And so I've had this habit of like I can disappear from a room full of people without nobody knowing, and people like, yo, where'd Carl go? One of my homeboys before I moved out here, when I was up in Indianapolis, one day he came and he was like, man, it took me 10 years to realize that if I ain't seen you in about 10 to 15 minutes, you get home. And so, and I was just like, yeah, you're right. And so when I moved out here, because I was around people that didn't really know me like that, I tried to at least make that exit of say bye, whatever, things like that, and speak before I leave. But then it takes so much energy. I'm like, yo, like, because I was thinking about it before then. And then recently I went to one of my homegirls' house for her son party, and I did it again, and I left. And then like the next day, she was like, oh yeah, yesterday he was looking for you. But she kind of, I think I said something to her about it before, so she just started laughing. And then then her sister asked me why she was laughing. And I think she was just like, she realized, yeah, like he just left without saying nothing. So then she later on about it. People started realizing, but it's just one of those things. And when you go to new social settings around people that don't know you, you have to re-explain like, I do this because it's like I don't feel like having to explain myself.
Yeah. You know what else I noticed? Because I'm around introverts all the time, right? Like my best friend is an introvert. Some of my homegirls are introverts. Introverts stay carrying cash too. Y'all carry cash when y'all go to the bars because y'all can just slide that cash and like just dip on out, right? Extroverts always using their card and we talking to people at the bar and all of that kind of stuff. But my homegirls stay with cash. And it's the easiest way for them to slip in and slip out of something. I was like, I see what y'all doing. But
and that's what actually took us so long to get this schedule. When somebody else schedules stuff, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to schedule this. Then I start thinking, I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah, I'll do it later. Like, it's just like I have to get myself mentally adjusted to be like, all right, I need to get this done.
For sure. But yeah, this was great. This was so exciting. So I hope a lot of people like listen and ask questions and like I hope it takes away from their fear of what counseling is, right? Like they fear that they have to sit and lay on this couch and somebody's going to dissect their whole lives. It doesn't even have to be that. There's so many different approaches to counseling, so many different things that counseling can do and problems that they can help solve and things like that. Like counseling is such a beautiful thing. It's like having somebody's undivided attention for an hour and you just talk about whatever you want to talk about. I had a client, and I'm going to go in a second because I know we're getting long, but I had a client come in the other day and just wanted to sit. She's a cute little girl, a sweetheart. She's probably in her early 20s. She's an introvert. Her wife is an extrovert. She came to counseling just to sit. She came in and she was like, hey, doc, I'm not really trying to talk a lot today. I just want to sit and like chill. And I was like, well, do you want to talk about it? Nah, I don't. Okay. Well, do you want to? No, I just want to chill. And she's been with me for about 6 months now. So it's great that she feels comfortable enough directing her counseling sessions because I appreciate when the clients know what they want to talk about or not. Right. So we sat there for a good 30 minutes and didn't say anything to each other.
Sometimes that's necessary.
I was so happy, Carl. She was like, I feel so good. I feel like I could go and I could just do what I need to do now. I'm like re-centered and stuff like that. And I was just like, cool. Hey, so make sure you pay your copay. No, I'm just playing.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you some quick questions. Okay. Called the rapid fire round. So what's one resource that helped you in your business this year?
One thing that helped me grow my business actually was social media, Instagram specifically. And one human resource that helped me was realizing that I couldn't do everything in my business by myself. I had to hire out and delegate.
All right. And what's one of your personal daily habits?
Frequently, I go to the gym about 5 times a week. Daily, I drink water first thing in the morning.
I feel that. I do that, but I do that too. It's a helpful thing.
I'm trying to think. I'm a Virgo, so everything in my life is a habit. But I drink water every morning. That helps me get my day started, my body moving. Yeah. And I go to the gym because, like you said, that helps me. That helps me release. It helps me prepare. I'm a military brat. I'm a veteran. First thing in the morning, get that movement out the way, knock it out. I feel like I've accomplished something early in the morning. I'm good to go for the rest of the day.
What's been your biggest inspiration this year?
Whoa, maybe my wife. She's like amazing. She's like an amazing person, the way her brain thinks. And we've been together for almost 4 years. And what's crazy is this year is the first time I really realized how smart she was.
Okay.
I was like inspired. I was like, flip, Then I had to hire my business, or I'm trying to hire her for my business because she's so smart. I want her to work for me.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
But that's she's been my biggest inspiration. Yeah, 100.
And if you could switch places with somebody for one day, who would it be and why?
Ooh, I don't know, Carl, if I want to switch lives with anybody. I'd want to be next to somebody. Okay. I'd want to be me and see how they move. And that person would be 100%. I know it is very cliche, but that smooth Michelle Obama, child, I would want to be next to her. I would want to see how she like navigates situations and figures things out. 100%. I would want to be next to her. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So how can people reach y'all?
They can find us on Instagram. We are Onyx Therapy Group, ONYX Therapy Group, and they can also find us on our website, also Onyx Therapy Group. We're one of the only Onyx Therapy groups out there. So if you just Google Onyx Therapy or Onyx Counseling, we will show up. And if you want counseling on our website, just hit us up and let us know. We have like a little talk to me button. You let us know, you get in, we get you a counselor. My little intake, not little, no disrespect to her, she's great. But my intake coordinator finds out information about you and pairs you with a counselor that's going to meet your needs. That's relatable, right? Like you're not just getting any old counselor, you're getting somebody who I make a decision that is going to be good for you. So that's how you get in contact with us.
Okay, and I know out here, somebody just started a organization called Mental Health Match. That they started in Houston, but they're trying to expand that to different areas, right, where people can get help over the phone, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything like that available? Are you with another organization that can help with that, or?
Yeah, for Black women, they can use Therapy for Black Girls. That was developed by Dr. Joy Bradford out of Atlanta, and so that's a directory of Black women therapists across the country. So whatever city you are in, there's a Black woman. If there's a Black woman therapist nearby, she's probably on there. And then Psychology Today is a national and international resource for counselors. You just put in your zip code and you can find us that way. We at Onyx, most of my counselors are certified in doing teletherapy. So you could be where you are in the country and I can still provide therapy for you out of Washington, D.C. So you don't have to come to where I am. You could be doing just like me and you are doing, Carl, where we are on video and we're doing a whole session. That's actually what I'm about to do right now. I know one of my clients was like, girl, where are you at? But not yet. She's probably not doing that yet. I got a few more minutes before the session really starts. But yeah, reach us on our website, reach us on IG. We are responsive. All of our stuff is managed either by me or by my counselor. So anytime somebody reaches out, there is a confidentiality in that. So we have celebrities that work with Onyx, and we would, nobody would ever know because we're so pure on our ethics around confidentiality and privacy. So reach out to us, let us know, and we got you.
All right. I appreciate you the conversation today, and just appreciate your time.
Of course, Carl. This is so great. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. We have to do something again.
All right, for sure. Talk to you later.
Talk to you.
Okay, bye.